Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and I'm going to spend a couple of minutes today just reviewing the bait casters, the round bait casters, and the free spool mechanism. I'm understanding from one of my viewers that they have a free spool mechanism that's sticking, that you can release it to free spool, but it will not trip back, or it will not lock when you push down, if it's a button activated one, similar to this Shimano Corsair. Some of the bait casters use a button, some of them use a little thumb switch up on top. This happens to be from a Shakespeare. But I thought I would just take these apart momentarily and give you a quick look inside and what makes those free spool mechanisms work and where the problems are. So speaking of the problem first, the problem is most of the time the reels, whether it's a Shimano, in this case, I'm just going to take this piece out, this is the gearing side. If it's a Shimano, or in this case it's the Shakespeare, both of these reels have openings in them. They have openings where the free spool release comes in, and they have openings along the gear side and some of the other things in the casing. They are not watertight, and what happens is a lot of dirt and contaminants and generally junk gets in these reels, and when they get in those reels they tend to interfere with the free spool release mechanisms. If it's a saltwater application, it tends to evaporate, leave salt deposits on there, and make this operation ineffective or slow down. There's a lot of moving pieces and parts on these. If you trap the dirt, if you get contamination in there, if you get lots of grease caught up in there and so on, it just doesn't operate efficiently. And eventually the button either doesn't, in this case, and the button comes down. There's a channel here the grease will sit in sometimes, and so on. So the short answer is, if you're working on a bait casting reel and your free spool release function is not working, you want to make sure that the reel is clean, like this one. So this is an older technology. This is a Shakespeare XKP. A lot of them you'll see on the Abu Garcias, for example, will also have a button technology. Here's the Abu 5500C, same idea. It's got a push button and a release. And others will carry this type of a technology. Others will use that thumb button. I think more conventional to the newer reels is the thumb button, but they all pretty much operate the same. So let's take a look at the mechanics behind it and just tell you generally what to do. So I've removed the side plate, the star drag, the handle, all that other stuff, just to open this reel up to show you it. Underneath this main drive is a trip lever which resets the free spool. So what will happen is a free spool you'll push the button down, it'll move this carrier out, and it will pull the gear, the spool gear, away from the spool shaft. That'll allow the free spool to turn, and then to reset it, once you click your handle, it resets the button and re-engages this. So I'm going to hold my finger on this, but when you push down, you can see that the carrier comes out and the spool gear goes away from the spool. That allows the spool to turn. And then there's a mechanism under here, and we'll show you that in just a moment, that once you turn the handle a click, it resets everything, pulls it all in. So let's just pull that main gear and I'll show you what's going on underneath there. Well, I pulled everything, but that's okay. So we have a ratchet under here, and underneath that sits on a pin. When you push down, this is going to engage the ratchet, as you can see. And then when the gear is turned, it's going to push this back up. So let's just go put that back in, and we'll see it without the main gear. Again, this, when you push down, it sits under there and it locks into a ratchet. And then when you turn the gear, that ratchet's going to click it up and release it. So With a reel like this, the primary cause for a failure on the free spool release is old dirt getting trapped in here. You want to use a penetrating oil like a WD-40 or something else. Clean it up, use some cotton swabs if you find that you got a lot of dirt and grease under there. Pull all these gears, get underneath here, and make sure all of this in the assembly is clean, and then reassemble. Test it like I'm doing here. You don't have to put the whole reel back together again. Just test it, make sure it's working, and if it's functioning properly, then you can go reassemble the reel. Take pictures along the way so you know how the reel is set up, and then you should have a well-performing reel with free spool that's operative. Again, this is just set up to show you those features and functions, so I'm not going through the balance. Here is a Shimano Corsair. This one operates on the button. The button actually trips a lever back on the reverse side of this. When it pushes this down, it has the same function that you just saw on the other. So I'm going to go ahead and do that from the back here. I'm going to push that down, and you can see that that will push that lever to engage the ratchet underneath here. And then again, when you turn the reel, it will reset it. So it goes down. Turn the handle, and it resets, pulling out, pushing in. Let's take this off so you can see what's going on underneath the Shimano. And again, this one has a series of levers on the main pinion gear. And we'll do this one more time here just to show you without the main gear on there. Activating from behind with that lever that switches it. Push down, it pulls the spool gear out, disengages, sets up on the ratchet, turn. The turn is going to bump this up, push all of this back, and release this to engage the spool. Okay, same notion here. This one's got a lot of moving parts most of the time. If it's a Shimano or this type of setup, you're going to get garbage in the channel here. You're going to get some contamination in here. And again, you want to pull all of this out, check underneath, make sure it's clean on all sides, lubricate it. If you're having some difficulty, again, use the WD-40, use some cotton swabs. That generally is generally will fix the problem. If you've got broken pieces and parts, different story. But 9 times out of 10, if you've got a sticky button on one of these where it's not going, if you clear the channel in the frame, and if you go in and lubricate the moving parts here, generally you're going to remedy the problem. Last thing on that Shimano, most of these have this kind of a clip in the back here which is going to activate. Whenever you go to reinstall that, you want to push that down like that, which is going to leave this in free spool mode as you go to reassemble. You want to pull that button up so that when you go, and again, this is not completed there, but you want to make sure that it's set so that when you trip, it's going to move that button back up. And I know you can't see it well in this video, but those are 2 helpful hints for you in terms of how these things break and how to go and generally service it. Make sure they're clean, regardless of whether it's a top-down, like the Shakespeare, or if it's like the Shimano here, which is the push-button type of a model. All of them do the same thing. They pull the main spool gear out. They engage a trip lever to the ratchet, and the moving parts just need to be lubricated in order to help that reel get restored to the proper free spool function. So I hope that helps you. If you have any questions on these types of things, please send me questions and comments. If I can help you resolve any of your reel issues, I'd like to know, and we'll give it a try. And in the case of this particular video, if you enjoyed it, please like it. If you'd like to see more of this type of thing, please subscribe. Thanks again. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle.